I think the Mona Lisa is quite ugly. In fact, this view is shared by many, but I imagine there is a very good reason as to why it is as famous as it is. It could have to do with the circumstances surrounding the painting or the life of the painter itself, but I personally find the painting ugly. I could resolve this with a quick Google search, but for the purposes of this video, it is very important that my possibly ignorant assumption remains an assumption. Now, the question I pose is that does me interpreting the Mona Lisa as ugly make it any less important a piece of art, or does it have inherent value that is preserved in the painter's image of the painting? Is the value of art really in interpretation or the vision of the artist? Animal Farm is one of my favorite pieces of literature ever written. My brother, who is a staunch believer of the dirty commie propaganda, is very anti-Animal Farm though. He says that Orwell critiqued communism without ever having visited a communist country. While there is something to be said about critiquing something without having experienced it for yourself, that is not what this video is about. I do not share my brother's interpretation of Animal Farm. I think the ideology presented in Animal Farm very closely, very suspiciously closely, resembles communism, sure, but I do not think what this is about. Please keep in mind that I do not claim that this is what Orwell intended it to be interpreted as, only that this is how I personally interpret it. To me, Animal Farm is more about what I'm gonna call the people problem, to have a killer YouTube title. Any ideology, any system, no matter how perfect in theory, has to survive the people test. It cannot and will not exist in a vacuum. It has to be implemented on a people with very real political realities and personal interests. That's part of the reason why it's so hard to argue for or against communism, because it immediately becomes a debate about human nature rather than the policies of communism itself. I was born Muslim. I was taught and later studied Islam for myself, and I found Islam to be a very good blueprint for anyone who wants a blueprint in this hellhole we call a life. But one look at the many sects, how many there are, and how all of them view each other, and you will find it is constantly used by people in power to divide people, to tell them X and or Y is a non-believer, and how slaughtering them in cold blood is actually a good thing. Any system ever in the world results in the inevitable othering of some people, whether it's poor people in capitalism or the Shias in Islam. I don't know whether it's innate human desire for conflict or whether it's simply the result of the watering down of ideologies generation to generation until they simply become chains that a few masters hold to control large masses that blindly believe whatever these figures will tell them because, well, the pigs obviously know better than them. Well, even as they catch the pigs rewriting the rules, no one will bat an eye and the system will go on as it is. Part of the reason that I think this happens is that people would rather adhere to a familiar, comfortable lie, even if they know it's a lie, than admit any uncomfortable new truth. But that is what seeking the truth is, unfortunately. The first step to shed the skin you were being indoctrinated into ever since you were a little kid is very hard. When you're done doing that, you have to constantly contend with people who won't do the same while digging for the truth at the same time, because the pigs have buried it so deep that even its corpse is hard to find. And while you dig for it, the pigs feast on its rotting flesh, savoring every bite, because you see, they keep just parts of that corpse because they need it. Just a bit of the rotting truth meat to make their main course of bullshit more palatable to the general public. Be that as it may, you must persevere. You must dig through the shit, even if it is one fingernail at a time. Anyway, on a much brighter note, the purpose of this video isn't to discourage you or make you despair at the state of the world or even romanticize that despair, tempting as that may be. It is for you to get to think for yourself and realize that any idea, no matter how pure, is going to get twisted, reshaped entirely, and bastardized to serve anyone in control of the people who believe in the idea without understanding it. So, do your research, and thank you for your time.